So yesterday's video, I started telling a story and got sidetracked with some only slightly relevant information and completely lost track of the story. And as I expected, because I was drawing a big blank for a nice little chunk, and it was driving me absolutely crazy. So, as expected, I went back home and watched the video, and as soon as I started down that path, I realized what it was, and then it just annoyed me that much more that I wasn't able to come back up with it. I was talking about clothes fitting briefly. It led me into another story about I had this plant on my desk that was it's been hit and miss with that one. Like, sometimes it looks like it's gonna make it, sometimes it doesn't look like it so much. So I sent a picture of this thing to my friend Roxy, who is into plants as well. She says it looks like the pot's too big. And my immediate thought was, well, then it should be happy because it has room to grow. And then it was like, but I'm pretty sure if anybody told me to just hang on to clothes that didn't fit because I might fit back into them someday, that would probably piss me off. So it's a very legit point of concern, I think. That was the point of the story. But it annoyed the crap out of me that I could not remember that for so long. However, it gave me somewhere to start today, so made it a little less dragging my feet time trying to figure out how to start the video or whatever. I just walked the dogs around the school lots, and we went 1 3/4 miles. We've made it a point in the past year anyway to, well, not full year, several months, because they didn't get walked a ton during the winter months just because cold and yeah. But since I started walking them regularly, I think it was back in April, and May was the last time I had taken any breaks and from our daily walks. And I was at the point for a while where if we only got a 1/4 mile in, it was still a 1/4 mile, and it was better than nothing. So since winter is not too terribly far off, hopefully we're able to continue that, because they don't care about snow. So I'm pretty sure they'll be content walking in it. So it's just going to be me sucking it up and dealing with the cold. But for what that's worth, I did skate through the winter last year. I think I had a 3-week span where I wasn't able to because it snowed, and it snowed enough that there was a bunch of salt down in the parking lots, and it was just tricky to navigate. So there's a 3-week span of time I just didn't get any time in. Mostly it was pretty good. The lot that I'm in right now is at the intermediate school, and there's a junior high and an elementary school that are all over here connected. And the elementary school, that's the one where if it rains any decent amount, that's the lot that's going to hold the water. And this one, I don't know why, but it doesn't. But worked out pretty well, except for the little path linking the front lot to the back lot. That's not the main road that cuts through. It has a lot of trees by it, so it doesn't, like, some of that ice wasn't melting off in that particular area. It's a little slow on that, but yeah. So we were walking, and I was trying to, I didn't listen to music today. Normally I've been listening to music as I go through it, and today we're just gonna, I guess, was hoping for clarity. I don't know whether I feel like I got a whole lot of that. In particular, there's some particular points that I would like to discuss, and I think like the biggest snag on putting them out there is I feel like I'm still trying to organize my thoughts around everything, and I'm clearly the fact that I'm mentioning this part at all, it seems kind of silly because most of my videos, it's not clarity of thought. It's just getting it out there, getting it out of my system, and having something else to release, and, then move on and till the next thing comes up. So will it all be handled in one video? Fuck, probably not. But, I mentioned yesterday that I got that victory card that talked about the biggest thing that stands in your way of victory is discipline. And, even if you don't want to do it, you need to at least put 20 minutes to it. I think that this is like combining a couple of cards, but the one was discipline is the thing that's standing in your way, and you're going to have to start being more disciplined about doing the thing. And as I've said before, whether this is the thing long term, it's at least the thing right now, getting me more open and used to speaking my truth and making it more of a habit, I guess. I don't know, because there was just so much throughout my entire life where it felt like my voice didn't matter, and so for the longest time I wasn't able to use it. Like, I never felt like I was able to stand up for myself. I never felt like I was able to even stand up for others, really, because there was just so much guilt and shame around things that I later found out weren't even, the guilt and shame that I carried wasn't really even mine to carry. It was just imposed upon me. And then it became my thing, and then it was just the thing that kept me from being able to ever speak. And that's why this has been so complicated of an endeavor. I think because, when I started, it was terrifying, but I had that little bit of that twin flame thing that was the motivation to do something. And, obviously that's not an overnight thing anyway, because this is basically my entire life's worth of drama that I'm having to navigate through and, find what most resonates with the truth of who I am. And that's a journey in and of itself, but starting out wasn't easy by any means, and I mentioned that I went live on Instagram one time and cried because it was so overwhelmingly intense and painful for me. And I had thought about leaving it up, but I was like, well, I didn't really say anything useful. So I ended up deleting it. And like only 2 people saw it, I think, anyway, but it was still the point of doing it, and then after that one thing was done, which was kind of funny because back during the pandemic, I watched this Tony Robbins thing. It was like a 3-day whatever. But one of the challenges was to go live on Facebook for a minute. And I was like, I don't need to do that. Why would I do that for? It's like, I'm not trying to get into the speaking aspect of things. But as I said yesterday, I know that is a part of my journey. that whole North Node thing. That's career path related. And it is, of course, in Gemini, which is communication. So, which before I knew any of that, like, I've only started paying any attention to astrology realistically within the past 5 years. So when I first made that connection, it's like, oh, of course, that explains why I keep getting these glimpses of like a future where I'm, speaking publicly in some kind of way. And that's been a whole thing. But like I said, I'm not there yet. But this is a lot closer than I was a year ago. So I am proud of myself for that. And while I spend less time crying in the videos than I did previously, obviously that's not completely resolved, and I don't think the point is to not ever cry in a video or whatever. Like, I feel like the point of sharing those stories is just for the fact that people go through a lot of shit and carry a lot of shit that they're afraid to process and release. And thus, this is the purpose of that part of my journey, processing it and releasing it in a space that will potentially, I don't know how many people will ever see this in the course of the video's lifetime. I don't even know if there's anything that would shut or kill the video at this point, aside from me, and maybe the forum it's held in. And I think that too is part of this whole process as well, because right now I got like, I think 84 videos up now, and I think the most any one video has or had the last time I saw it was like 50 or 60 views. And I don't know how many of those are actually sticking around for the whole thing. But I think that's a big part of why this whole journey, like the girl in my dream back in March said it would be slow to start, but it would build momentum, but it would take time. So I needed to start sharing the story I already have to share before more of my mission would be revealed. And, I think that's a big part of it because, right now, who am I? Who cares? So it's not like depending on who I'm talking to out in the real world, I'm relatively harmless. And I think, I have some big ideas on where I do feel like my path is leading me to, because one of the biggest things that I've noticed just on this journey in general is there's a lot of stuff I remember praying for when I was, in high school or even middle school, undergrad, a bunch of things that I'm starting to see. It's like, who I am, okay, from the prayers that I prayed and the hard stuff that I asked for on my journey. And having the strength to face a lot of the things that I used to ask for. I feel like there's a lot of, okay, uh, also, that whole piece where, okay, like my office space, how I Jackson Pollocked my space. I've talked about how it's like I needed to see the chaos outside of my system, and now I can, like, I'm starting to be able to hone in on different aspects of my journey and my path, just this whole thing, that are more relevant to the big mission. And, you know, I mean, especially, that's one of the biggest things with why it has been so critically important for me to learn to trust myself and trust my own voice and my own strength and confidence, you know, being able to trust me. So when everybody else might look at me and think, she's full of shit, whatever, it's not about having it all together, especially right now when I'm just really starting, you know, navigating the early stages of the journey, you know, because it's like my entire life has been a series of lessons to get me to this point in time where I'm strong enough to face my own shadows and to bring light into the darkest places of myself and expose the stuff I've been carrying to the world through this this means of doing so. You know, and I've talked to Roxy about some stuff. I've talked to my brother about some stuff. And at the same time, I've always benefited from talking my way through my problems. You know, I had a roommate in undergrad my sophomore year, and we were super close. And a lot of my early realizations came in through basically talk therapy with her. And, you know, we kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and also just the point of being able to talk and get it out of my system helped me to make connections. Like, back when I was talking to her, this was 20 years ago. Yep, that old, huh? So 20 years ago, I remember laying on the floor of our dorm room, and she was at her desk, I think, or, yeah, I think so. That or doing homework on her lofted bed. I don't, one of those two things. But she was just letting me ramble, and I got to a point where it's like, why does it seem like everything that happened goes back to when I was like 7 to 10? Because back then I wasn't really locked in on the age time frame. You know, I mean, I knew for sure that my great grandpa's death was like a catalyst point in it. And then my dog when I was 8, and then, yeah, the bullies were, I mean, the bullying when it started, that was pretty set, because I had these other traumatic experiences that led me into not being in a clear mind space for that part of the journey. You know, and that came up, and that one was an easy no for me too, because it happened the first year at a new school, because the elementary school that I went to wasn't built until, well, it was finished and opened going into my second grade year. So that was the first year that I had there. And then all this traumatic chaos came up in that time frame. Before that elementary school was opened, the elementary school that I started at was attached to the high school. And, like I was talking to my mom the other day, she forgot all about that part. And I said, like, the biggest thing that I remembered about it was, I feel like, I don't know if it was part of the home ec class or something like that, but I don't even remember the connection with the girl. There was a high school girl that made a little book for me, and I still have it somewhere. But I think I was in like kindergarten or first grade when she gave it to me, but I don't remember why we had any connection. I think it was just, the bigger kids, since they were, at the high school, got to spend some time with the elementary kids for some class or something. I don't even remember all those. I don't remember any of those details. And when I told my mom about it, she was like, now that you mention it, I remember that, but I don't, don't know anything why beyond that. So it was like, I don't remember. But like at the end of the little book, it's on like construction paper, and she drew pictures and stuff. I gotta find this book. She had a picture of herself and gave a little bit about who she was. And I don't remember, but I have found this book several times throughout my life, because it's been somewhere I wouldn't lose it. And now that somewhere is in a box, I think, somewhere. But yeah, it's just it would come up, and then I'd like reread it. It's like, oh yeah. And then read the little blip about the girl. I don't remember anything about her except for she had a lot of curly hair. Of course, well, back in the 80s, big hair was a big thing. So yeah. But that was, I think probably kindergarten, but maybe first grade, but I really don't remember. But I remember, of course, she had Sarah being the main character, and then there was a little boy named Johnny in it. And there was something about Johnny and like the spiders, and I don't know. And he scared her, and she was all upset. I don't remember, but like I said, I want to find it again. Because it's one of those things that it always meant something to me, even though, she was probably there for a class or whatever. There's still something fun to hang on to, and not very many people remember it, I guess. Especially since my mom doesn't remember it, so, yeah. And I think if I would have remembered more about the connection to the girl rather than having the book, I think I probably would have allowed, my mom to talk me out of it. But she remembers, she knows I still have the book, or she knew that I had the book somewhere along the line. So it's like, well, obviously here's this evidence that this thing happened, but I don't remember anything else, because of course I don't remember much from back then. I remember getting on the wrong school bus once, and that was a whole traumatic thing. Oh, yes, that was when the elementary school was attached to the high school. And my dad worked for the school system, and I just was, I was bawling because I didn't know anything. It's like, okay, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned that I flunked preschool because I wouldn't talk to anybody. So it was right in that time frame of not wanting to talk to anybody and at the same time being terrified because I didn't know anything about how to get back home. And my mom was babysitting, and I think what happened was everybody else got off the bus and I wasn't with them, and she's like, "Where's Sarah?" And my dad worked over at the school, and I think they said, I think he said he heard something over the radio about a kid that was left on the bus or got on the wrong bus or something. And I think mom ended up calling him, and I don't know. This is a big traumatic thing, and it just weighs that much more heavily when I was at a time frame in my life that I didn't want to talk to anybody. So, that's... I feel myself tearing up on this whole point, but I remember being this little kid terrified of speaking to anybody. That was the big thing when I was or when they were trying to figure out if I was going to get pushed through to kindergarten or stick around for another year of preschool. And it was that academically I was great. But then when it came to speaking to people, it was just like, nope. My mom, well, she's told me the story many times about having to go through all this academic testing and everything to try to figure out what they were going to do with me. And they were talking to the principal, and at some point, I don't know if he was asking me questions or what, but I just got up and walked over to my mom and so my head in her shirt. It's yeah, let's give her another year. So, so even starting way back then, so I'm pretty confident there's a lot more to that whole voiced aspect. Gosh. This is not where I thought this was going to go today, but I kind of did some affirmations while I was walking the dogs and wanting clarity of thought and just whatever came up today, that I wouldn't just derail in the middle of it. Yeah. So, okay, I've talked about this before too, not everybody apparently has Chiron in their chart, but I do. And of course, it's also in Gemini. So, my wounded healer aspect, it's got everything to do with my voice and, and just using it, learning to speak up. And the other day I was skating and thinking about this, the whole idea of using my voice and how, especially once guilt and shame got added into the mix of things keeping me from doing it. It's I was skating and thinking, because the twin flames, it's kind of like the mirror. So at a time, my whole life is basically this time, but while I was so unable to use my voice, then it's he's out there. And a lot of, I think his earlier stuff, there was a lot more screaming. And it's like, you know what? That feels like it makes sense too, because it's like I couldn't get it out of my system. So if you consider that it's, you know, basically one energy in two bodies, so I couldn't release all this trauma with my voice. So that became a thing that he had to do on his end because, well, he could. And, you know, a lot of it, there was some refusal just because, you know, I didn't like how I sounded or whatever, because when I was in first grade, my best friend at the time, I called her house, and of course that's when we had, you know, the landlines and all that stuff, and her mom answered the phone and made a big deal about, oh, I thought this was Rachel's boyfriend, and that was a big trauma point there too, and it's like, I don't want to talk anymore, you know. It's like, apparently I don't sound right either. You know, and yeah, it's kind of interesting to reflect on how it's all been connected. And like I've been talking the past couple of days, I know there are some heavier things that I know I'm going to talk about on here very soon, and I feel like there is a big point, but I also feel like this is kind of, since it came out today, this is obviously a necessary part of it too, because otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it. Yeah. You know, maybe we just need to walk 2 miles and then do a video every single time, because they're like so chill right now. Everybody's passed out. Yeah. So it'd be a perfect time to go into the heavier stuff, but I don't know. I just don't feel like that's where I'm at right now. And it really annoys me. There are at least 5 streetlights up by the school that are on right now, and it's like 12 o'clock or 12:30. Yep. So that's kind of annoying. I think that I'm just going to wrap it up because I don't have anything else to go into at this moment. And I know I got a couple other things to do today, so I guess I might as well go get started on those. And I'll probably skate before I'm done because it's really nice out, and maybe I'll do another video after that. Who knows? I just know that I need to prioritize making it a daily thing for a while, even if it goes like this and I don't talk about anything of relevancy. Because I think even then, like, there's some kind of point of it or usefulness to it. I think the big thing is learning not to edit myself unfairly either, because I do have a big long history of doing that in my lifetime as well. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm gonna call it. So here's to making this a more regular routine of being disciplined enough to do the thing, even if I don't think I have anything to say, because that'll sometimes that eventually leads to what needs to be said. Yeah, and maybe it's a matter of still needing to hone more aspects of the big topic as well. It'll come up. I'll get there. As always, I appreciate you. Until the next time. See ya.